So I am leaving for an audition. I'm here in Atlanta, and it's 16 degrees outside. It's freezing. I can see my breath in the car. You can't see it. But it's so cold, and it's earlier in the morning for me than it usually is, so it's like freezing, but I'm excited. I'm just waiting for my car to heat up. Whew. So these are the things I learned with doing the audition with Disney. I got into this place. First is like, when you get all your information together, have some kind of plan for where you're keeping all of that information so you don't lose track of it, because there's a lot of stuff that's thrown at you that's like requirements for auditioning, where you're gonna go. Do you need printed materials? Do you need to have digital materials set up? So for Disney, they had a performer profile that you had to set up before you went. So I did that then. I had done that previously, and then I like updated some of the stuff the night before. And then I had also saved all the information on my calendar. So when you auditioned, sometime, like for this one, it had a like little event that you could add to your calendar, but they're not always necessarily going to do that. So when you have an audition come up, put all of the information in a notebook that you use a lot, if that works for you. Or for me, it's having the calendar event have all of that information in it. So when you tap on it, it will just bring up all of the information that you need, like location, time. The time it started was not necessarily the time you checked in. And so you need to make sure that if there's a check-in time to get an audition number for something that's like larger like this, you need to make sure that you get there before you need to actually start. So like, I think it started at 10, but they said to check-in started at 9:30, and I got there at 9 and people had been there. So like I got there at 9, which is 30 minutes before check-in started, and I got number 76. I think it was 76, 71. And so that kind of gives you an idea of like showing up early, being prompt, and having your information together. So when you get there, they had us check in. They gave us kind of like a briefing about what was going to happen. Then we did like our little check-in, which was where you got a number, and then you got onto the website and you put the number into the website, and the casting director, he would see your information come up as you came through. And it was kind of funny because the audition website crashed because there was like 120 something auditionees. And so the assistant or whoever was there came in and was like, okay, so we're gonna do something different. And so they brought in a QR code on a sheet of paper, and it was a Google form, and then you had to do the Google form instead of the page that they had you set up previously. And so with that, being flexible when you go into an audition is critical, because things can change. While we were there, the accompanist didn't show up. So all of us were having to sing a cappella. So coming in with your music ready so that you can perform well, but then ready enough to where you can flex with whatever happens. So if an accompanist doesn't show up, or somehow you forgot your music or something like that, just being prepared so that you don't forget your music, and then prepared enough to where if something random happens, that you're prepared to perform well. Because in performing spaces, it's never going to go perfectly. Being flexible is realistic in performing, and so being flexible even when you're in your audition and prepared enough to perform well is crucial, and it's just a showcasing of your skill. And that's one thing to remember is when you go into these audition rooms, the casting director is excited that you're there and they're wanting you to succeed, because if you succeed, they succeed. And if they see you as someone that they can put into the show or cast in a specific role, that helps them. So they're wanting you to succeed so that they can do their job well. So remembering that. And then also, if you are not cast, that's not necessarily a reflection of your skill. It is just you weren't who they were looking for, and that's fine. And being okay with that is important so that you don't get defeated and so you can continue to show up for auditions. Another thing is that in the audition room, auditioning and working with other creatives doesn't have to be a toxic space like it can be and has been and sometimes is. Because when you're in there, you all feel like you're competing, but really you're all wanting to show up as your authentic self to perform well, and the casting director will decide if you fit the role. So you're not competing against each other. You are just trying to see if you fit the role and you fit the vision that the casting director has. And that was something that I kind of, thinking back on it, learned, because when I went in, of course, you go in and you're like, it's just me, and you're showing up and there's all these people in this room and they're all like super talented, and you're like, oh, why am I here? So the imposter syndrome sets in. And then I went in there and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then I sat down with this group, and slowly our little circle like built, and there was like we sat down, there was like 3 of us or 4 of us, and then someone else came in the room. And when you come in the room too, know how you feel and how like you can feel insecurity and feel the imposter syndrome, and then be a relief for someone else when you see that in them. So if you see someone come in and they're nervous or they're uncomfortable, you can set the tone for the room. And so there were some people that came in, and I had seen, like, I wanted this when I came in the room to someone just like invite me to sit down, and they did. And so when I saw someone else, you just pass that same energy on and bring someone else into your group. And then we just kind of built this friend bond, and we hung out for hours while we were waiting to be called. And then afterwards we went and hung out. And so you can really build cool relationships and fun relationships through doing these things. So you might not necessarily come away with a job or land a gig or anything like that, but you can form connections and friendships with other people who can help you along your performing journey. And if you remember that you're not competing against them, but you are with them in this journey to tell stories together, whether that's on the stage or on film, then you will have a healthier perspective. And that's important to have and to foster in yourself, is to have a healthy perspective when you're working with other people, because they're other people. They're not your competition. Some might be out to get you, but that doesn't mean you should give the same energy. You should, if someone's out to get you, you should be kind and gracious to them. The Bible says we should pray for our enemies and love those who hate us and hurt us. And so that same concept applies when we are auditioning, when we are working, when we are collaborating well. We want to treat other people as people and not forget that. And it's easy to forget that when you're performing because you want to get the role, but it's not about that. What our goal as storytellers is, in whatever space that is, whether it's music or film or stage acting, your focus should be on the audience. And we want to tell a good story to the audience. And if that's our focus for the audience and being others focused, we should be others focused as well while we're working with people and while we are auditioning. So it was fun.